Welcome back. I am Tyler here with my brother Ryan, and today we are breaking down the Las Vegas Raiders 3 round mock draft and the players that we selected. But before we do that, be sure to like, subscribe, and also ring the bell to get notified whenever we create new Raiders content. We are doing Raiders 3 round mock drafts, 7 round mock drafts, all the way leading up to the 2024 NFL draft. Also, every Monday, we are releasing a personal mock draft and rotating every single week leading up to that draft. So if you want to see that content and also see more Raiders content, be sure to ring that bell. Also, too, we are trying to get to 3,000 subscribers by the end of the Super Bowl. So, easiest way to do that is just to hit that subscribe button. We need just about 15 or 16 new subs per video for our 32-team 3 round mock draft as we're releasing a video for every single team. So, subscribe is the easiest way to help us out, and thank you for that. And Ryan, let's pull up the screen here. So, quickly, just to orient you, what you're looking at here is you're looking at the Raiders pick, and we're going to get into what we did in a second. But we did include a couple picks before and also after as well. Let's give some context on who was and was not available. Also, then, too, we included some potential options as well on the right side. So, see here, the Raiders, they are not picking at their original spot at 13. We did actually have them trade up with Chicago, and they jumped the New York Jets to take Olu Fashanu, help beef up that offensive line. They have several starters that are currently free agents as of right now. So we thought potentially this would be interesting, just trying to mix it up a little bit. Go get Olu Fashanu. Probably you can make an argument one of the best left tackles in this class. We did have Joe Alt going before him, but easily if Titans ended up taking Olu Fashanu, we can honestly see them doing the same thing with Joe Alt as well. So, but Ryan, I want to hear your thoughts on this trade, especially after going through this mock here. What's your overall thoughts on this trade? Do you think this is something that a Raiders fan would like to see?
Yeah, I mean, I think you invest in this offensive line, they're going to miss out on the top three quarterbacks here. So unless they're going to invest in a Bo Nix, which I don't really see a big difference right now between him and Aiden O'Connell. I think this draft asset would be better spent protecting him. I think getting a guy like Olu Fashanu, he's going to be your left tackle for the next 10 years. You really don't have to worry about that position for a long time. Then I think you throw that in the mix. You have Jacoby Myers, you have Devontae Adams, you have some Hunter Renfrow. These receiver pieces are in place. You invested in Michael Mayer last year. Going out and now protecting him, I think is going to be the top priority. You just signed Antonio Pierce, your new head coach, to kind of build this defense. I think you guys have a really solid base there, kind of with Max Crosby leading the way. And I think you can invest in the defense later in the draft and find good pieces later. Whereas to me, there's a really big drop off in the tackle spot, right? And if you let one of these guys fall to the Jets at 10, the Jets are going to be picking with 9 minutes and 58 seconds left on the clock because it's going to take them 2 seconds to run in the card if Olu Fashanu is on the board. And so it's he's a great talent, one of the best tackle prospects we have seen in years. And frankly, if Joe Alt wasn't in this class, like we would be talking about Olu Fashanu the same way we're talking about Joe Alt being this just all-world left tackle, right? Mm-hmm. The only flaw in his game is that he's not the greatest finisher in the run game. And to me, a lot of that is just mentality and want to in the running game to kind of really finish his blocks and stuff. So very fixable problems. And he's a fantastic player.
Yeah, I think too, my one thing with this pick now, just looking back on it, and so they do have 3 offensive linemen, Andre James, Greg Van Roten, and Jermaine Illuminor. Yeah, I got it right. Perfect. Are 3 starting offensive linemen that are free agents, but they're all on the right side. And so I think Olu could absolutely play right tackle. They do have Colton Miller as their left tackle. But that's not really why I'm thinking I don't know if I like this trade now. It's the only thing then too. So they traded up the 13th pick, also the 77th pick as well. So the 3rd round pick. So they only have 2 picks in this mock draft. But I think then too, they also have a lot of holes on the defensive side of the ball. If they would have stayed at 13, more than likely I would think that Jersey Newton would be there. And 2 of their free agents, Lyle Nichols and John Jenkins, are also going to be hitting free agency. And I think and I'm just thinking now, and this is post us doing this and organizing everything, and we're recording a couple of days after doing the whole mock draft. Because I still like to trade up, but I almost like staying put. Or if you're going to trade up, maybe trade up for Jersey Newton, and maybe just jump Denver, maybe trade with Minnesota, and give up less draft capital, still keep that third. That's just what that's I think something the route I would personally prefer them do, but this is something I could absolutely see the Raiders organization do. Leave a comment down below and let us know your thoughts on this trade and also what you would prefer the Raiders to do. Very curious because the Raiders, they're in that spot. There's so many unique different storylines for all these teams in the middle of this draft because there's so many different ways they can go. There's so many great players. So let's move on, though, to the second pick now for the Las Vegas Raiders here. This is where we do end up having them getting Byron Murphy, defensive tackle, getting a guy on the defensive interior here, address some of that free agency issues that they have going into this offseason with some of the defensive tackles on the market, potentially not coming back. But I think the biggest thing, though, too, is you get someone like Byron Murphy here who has got a lot of pass rushing upside and very effective. You put a speedster defensive tackle, and then you put him on the same line with Max Crosby, who's going to be drawing so much attention already. So I think he's going to bring in a lot of potential help to Max Crosby, and he's going to have to draw on some attention, which potentially could create some more one-on-one matchups as well for Max Crosby on the outside. What's your overall thoughts on Byron Murphy, and then also some other potential options the Raiders could go?
Yeah, and so I think this is the reason why we ended up doing the Olu Fashanu trade in the first round was I think you look at the drop off at tackle, right? There's 5 guys I think that are truly worthy of being first round draft picks that are going to come into the NFL and be an immediate starter at tackle. You got J.C. Latham, Amarius Mims, Talise Fuaga, Olu Fashanu, and Joe Alt. And none of those guys are going to make it out of the top 20, 25, in my opinion. And for me, I think if you look at Jersey Newton and you look at Byron Murphy, and it's like, okay, they're very similar size, very similar players. They play a very similar role. And you did expend that third round pick to go up and get Olu Fashanu, but you're not going to be able to get a player like Olu Fashanu at 44. Whereas I think Byron Murphy can come in and play defensive tackle for you week 1 and not look out of place. And as the season goes on, develop and get a lot better. And potentially be a force in the middle. So that to me, I really like Byron Murphy as a prospect. Lining him up next to Tavondre Sweat, he did get a lot of favorable matchups in college, but he took advantage of those. I mean, he was the second rated defensive tackle in all of college football last year, according to PFF, and just absolutely fantastic. Great hands, great speed, good quickness, good contact balance. He's only 308. I mean, I say only 308, but he's 308 pounds, and he doesn't really get moved off the ball. Like you would think that he plays at a higher weight than what he actually does. So I really like him as a prospect, and I think this would be a great fit here at 44.
Yeah, I feel the more and more I think about this, then if doing what they did in the first round, go tackle. I think they could wait on receiver. They don't need a tight end as of right now. And even then, too, I feel like they're fine on the edge rusher. They're more than fine on the edge rusher position as a whole with Max Crosby, Malcolm Koonce, and also Tyree Wilson out there as well. So I think they could wait on that also. So we were trying to think of like maybe potentially secondary. Do you have Tyler Newman that's there? And I don't think Bo Nix is going to be a guy, as we already kind of talked about, like similar to Aiden O'Connell.
I think at 44, you can have that conversation, but I don't think you're having that conversation in the first round.
Well, and that's what I think it's – so you're drafting him then to potentially be a backup quarterback to already a guy who could potentially – who's probably a backup quarterback in general. You know? So that's why I think you can add more immediate value. Now, if Bo Nix is there at 77, then I think – potentially that's there, or like the fourth round, like depending on where he's at. But I don't think that he'll make it that far. Because I think a team like the Rams, who have a lot of picks, I think that it's a luxury pick to take Bo Nix, try and develop him. So then a couple of years now, when Matt Stafford retires, that situation makes a little bit more sense to me.
Yeah.
And even then, too, since we're here, and if you want to go on the next slide to the mock draft, but like with Aiden O'Connell, to me, I think he performed well enough to deserve.
Give him a shot.
Just let's keep giving him a shot here. There's kind of some major turmoil last year with Las Vegas Raiders, and I'm glad that they are going with Antonio Pierce here. And so I think that I like both the players that they got here. I will say, just now going back and looking at it, I'm just curious if Olu's worth a third round pick. It's just,
is it worth it for the Raiders?
Is it worth it for the Raiders? You know what I mean? Like I could see maybe if Denver would want to do that and like shore up that offensive line potentially, or maybe who's the team behind them? The Colts, potentially they could do that. Seahawks were at 16, they want to do that. Jags spent first rounder last year, so like that's what they're. It's very unique of a team. Maybe Minnesota if they want to shore up their offensive line, but honestly, too, their issue is going to be interior, not offensive line. So there's only so many teams I think in that scenario that would trade up for the Raiders for Olu. And so I think that it was maybe just an opportunity we're testing out. Be curious to kind of see if how I feel about this a couple months from now. If they're still going to potentially trade up for Olu, or if they do trade up, who would they trade up for?
Yeah. I honestly, even after like working it out, I still think the trade makes sense. I do think if the Raiders actually do it or not is up for debate. But all in all, I think if this is the draft that the Raiders come out with in the top 100 after day 2, I mean, if I'm a Raiders fan, I think I would be happy with it. To me, I think if you look at a lot of their losses, they were fairly marginal this year. To be fair, a lot of their wins were also in a similar fashion. But again, like winning close games, it's going to come down to a game of inches. And I think guys like Olaf Shanu and Byron Murphy in the trenches are like difference makers in those types of games. So I really like it. Let's go ahead and wrap up this video here. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below on what you thought of this Raiders 3-round mock draft. Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you do differently? And on that, we'll see you guys next time.